Excellent. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Strategic Development Committee. Good evening, Councillor Morris. So welcome to members, officers, members of the press and public joining Strategic Development Committee this evening. The meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, so welcome to any viewers who've tuned in for this exciting event. To minimise travel and maintain social distancing, most officers are joining this evening's meeting via Zoom. Can everyone online hear me? Excellent, that's promising. My name is Councillor Joshua Garfield. I'm the Deputy Chair of this committee, and I'll be chairing the meeting for this evening as apologies were received from the Chair. For members in the room, can you please speak up nice and clearly and loudly so that you can be heard both in the room and online for the benefit of those on the Zoom or watching via YouTube, as the microphones can be temperamental, though they are dotted around. And if you're not speaking, that's a legacy message about face coverings. For anyone joining via Zoom, please do mute your microphone if not speaking. And if at any point you would like to come in, please do raise your hand digitally, and between myself and Shirley, who was clerking, make sure that your comments are captured. I will now go around the room and ask members of the committee and officers to introduce themselves. If we start at the back row and go with yourself, Councillor Morris.
My name is Councillor John Morris. I am the Councillor for Plaster West and Cannon-in-Tanis, and I am a member of this committee.
Hi, I'm Alan for East Hampstead. I'm a member of this committee.
Councillor Mohammed Kani from Boleyn Ward and a member of this committee.
Councillor Colin Lee Parkway, Plaistow South Councillor and also a member of the committee.
Fantastic. Just for the benefit of people on Zoom, let's go in this order. So Dan, would you like to introduce yourself?
So my name is Dan Legg, Principal Planner at Newham.
Could we crack the volume up a tiny bit, Shirley? Thank you. Marina?
Hello, I'm Marina Lai, Principal Planner in the Council's planning team.
Excellent, thank you, Marina. Amanda?
Amanda Campbell, Head of Planning Law.
Brilliant. James?
Hello, James Bolt, Senior Development Manager.
And Jane?
I'm Jane Custance, I'm the Director of Planning and Development.
Thank you. Mark?
Mark Green, Head of Estate Regeneration here on Vincent Street.
Thank you. And finally, Robert.
Hello, I'm Robert Sackula. I'm Chair of the Design Review Panel for this, for Vincent Street.
Audio-wise, could you repeat that pretty, please?
Yes, I'm Chair of the Design Review Panel for the Vincent Street project.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves, everybody. I want to just remind members and all those watching, whenever a vote is taken, it will be by way of raising our hand. And of course, only members of the committee present physically in the room due to legislation will be counted as officially present and therefore be allowed to vote. Okay, let's move on to item one. Shirley, do you have any apologies?
From Councillor Hobbin, and the Chair, Councillor Rachel Twix.
Excellent. I think I have had apologies for lateness from Councillor Khan. Are there any others to report, Councillor Parkway?
Councillor Madeline Seliponton is also apologies.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing it. We'll make sure that's recorded. Let's move on to item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any to be declared by any members of the committee? No. For full transparency, one of the items that we are determining today relates to a school in Newham. As Cabinet Member for Education, I've had no involvement in this particular application and have sought advice from legal to confirm that there is no pecuniary interest or conflict, and therefore it's fine for me to continue chairing the meeting for that item. But for transparency, I thought I'd alert everyone to that fact. With that in mind, shall we move on to item 3? Members are asked to note, good evening, Councillor Khan, you've joined us just in time. Members are asked to note the advice from the Head of Legal Services on determining planning applications. Is that noted by members present in the room?
Good.
Excellent, thank you. Moving on to item 4, announcements from the chair. I have the following announcement to make. Will members please note that the application appearing as item 5 on the agenda, that is Thameside Industrial Estate in North Woolwich, has been withdrawn by the applicant. Therefore, we shall not be hearing or determining that planning application this evening. And the first substantive item will indeed be item 6. In terms of requests to address the committee, we have received the following requests. Could the speakers please identify themselves when I call them, for the benefit of those online and in the room? So we'll start for item 6. Santok?
Here.
If you want to say where you're from and what role you're playing at present here, that would be really helpful.
So my name's Santok Cool. I'm a regeneration manager working on the Canning Town Estate regeneration project.
Thank you, Santok. Jude?
Jude Harris. I'm a director at Jessica Miles Architects, and we are the architects for the scheme. And we're also working with the council on the master plan.
Brilliant. And Chris?
Hi, Chris Gascoigne from DP9 with planning consultants, also working on the Vincent Street planning application.
Thank you. And responding to questions, we'll have Alex.
My name is Alex Luria from Jessica Miles. I'm an associate project architect on the Vincent Street project.
Emily is not with us. Is Emily online? I'm not joining at all. No problem at all. Zoe?
Zoe Smythe, work for DP9 senior.
Brilliant. Thank you, Zoe. And finally, Tom.
Tom Newby from Bureau Happold Engineering. I'm a project director for the engineering services on Canning Town Estates regeneration.
Brilliant. Thank you for introducing yourself this evening. The usual practice will be to allow up to 5 minutes collectively to address and present to the committee, and the same amount of time is allotted to objectors, although we haven't got any formally presenting this evening to object to the application. Is that perfectly fine by yourselves? Excellent.
Excuse me, Mark Green has raised his hand. I think he's.
Here on behalf of the applicant.
Excellent. Mr. Green, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Mark Green, Head of Estate Regen, here to take any questions on the Vincent Street application as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mark, for coming in on that. That's really helpful. Fantastic. From members of the committee, are we happy to agree the remainder of the order of business now that item 5 has been withdrawn as outlined in the agenda?
Agreed, Chair.
Excellent. We should continue as such. Would members please note the officer update report circulated, and note that the full consideration and planning assessment of matters is covered comprehensively in the committee report. Excellent. Let's move on. Let's go right into item 6. Can I please call on the applicant's team for item 6 to address the committee?
Chair. Shirley, we have a presentation. If you're able to share that, that would be fantastic. We might ask you to drive as well in terms of next slides, etc. If that's all right.
For those online, we're just getting the presentation up so we can all see it, and the applicants will begin. I'll start a timer before you begin, just so we stick within our.
Right, to give us a 1 minute warning when we're near the end.
I can certainly give you a 1 minute warning. Ready to begin? Fantastic, off you go.
Thank you. So thank you, Chair and committee members. The application before you is the first phase of the Canning Town Estate regeneration project, forming part of the wider estate regeneration for Canning Town. This affordable housing scheme seeks to secure £14.7 million of GLA grant funding, which is key to delivering affordable homes, which our residents are renewing. I'll now hand over to Chris from DP9.
Next slide, please, Chair. Maybe need to scroll down on the right hand side.
Apologies, I'll just pause the timer while we sort out the slides. No problem at all. There have been.
It's frozen at your
message appeared perhaps on the computer that needs to be dismissed.
maybe I need to do it this way, apologies. Yeah, so.
Shirley, you could try and.
We go.
Oh.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Lovely.
Sorry, it's our fault. Just a few summary facts and figures for you. So the application before you, Chris, is 147 new homes, fantastic 100% affordable housing, or genuinely affordable. We've got 46% of the units are family homes, so a mixture of 3, 5 beds. There's a small community use as part of it as well. We'd like to thank your officers and the design review panel for what's been a really thorough and collaborative process, resulting in the scheme before you now. I'll now hand over to Jude from Jessica Miles, the architects, who will just talk you through some of the key elements of the architecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Santol. Thank you, Chris. So as you know, this site is in Canning Town. It's about 0.88 hectares. You can see on the aerial photograph there, it's outlined in red, and that's actually within a wider kind of hoarded area, which you may be familiar with if you've walked down Vincent Street. It is a vacant site. Whilst there used to be housing on the site, that has not been there for some time. And so therefore, as part of this application, there's no loss of existing housing. Next slide, please. It's part of the wider Canning Town Estates Regeneration Area, which, as you know, is a strategic site. And so this bottom right-hand corner outlined in red will be the first phase that is brought forward as part of that master plan. It is 100% affordable, as you've heard, and so primarily it will be intended that this development will accommodate decant as part of the wider master plan development. We intend to come forward with the master plan application in the summer of this year. So in parallel with the Vincent Street proposals, we've been developing a wider master plan strategy, and that's described within the planning application in terms of the context. Next slide, please. We've worked very closely with the community in a kind of collaborative co-design process, both with officers, but also the local community. We have the facility on site of the Trinity Centre, and we've had a number of community events where we've kind of engaged with them, both in terms of the master plan, but also the ideas that we have for the Vincent Street development. The co-design has been central to the design development process, and it will continue to be central to the master plan design development process that we are currently going through. As a result, there have been no objections from local residents to the planning application, and we see that as a great endorsement of the engagement that we've carried out to date. In terms of the site, there's a new public square proposed on the southeast corner surrounding a very grand mature tree that's on the existing corner of that block at the moment. There's a standalone block to the east side of the development, which we're calling the pavilion block. And then to the west, there is a courtyard block, which has a raised landscape podium. There's a new internal street between the podium block and the pavilion block, which will be landscaped. And then we've provided at-grade parking below the landscape podium to meet the parking requirements. The height of the development varies between 3 stories and 9 stories, and that variety has been very much part of the design strategy that we've developed for the site. Next slide, please. There's a mix of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 bedroom homes, which has enabled us to meet and even exceed the policy requirement for family homes. You heard on Chris's slide, we've managed to achieve 46% family homes. We're obviously providing 10% wheelchair housing, and we have a number of maisonettes located at ground floor, which provide a positive activation to the street frontage. In terms of sustainability, the whole development has been designed with passive house targets in mind. It's one of the first designs that we've developed as a practice, and indeed has been brought forward for a planning application that meets the new requirements of the Part O in terms of overheating. So the number of dynamic solar shading provision as part of the proposals. We're generating electricity from photovoltaic panels located at roof level, and the entire heating for the development is provided from electric, low carbon heating through an air source heat pump solution.
Jude, you've got 1 minute.
Okay. In terms of access and inclusive design, only accessible parking has been provided. We have blue badge provision for disabled residents, and they'll be able to apply for these spaces. Returning residents that have been decanted from the existing estate will retain the right to a parking permit, but no new parking permits will be offered. So we have 18 blue badge spaces overall, with on-street parking on Vincent Street and 40 Acre Lane. We've met all of the TfL parking standards. And we've also got, as part of the development, the Newham's underground refuse system, which provides underground refuse storage, in addition to some storage within the ground floor of the residential development. Next slide, please. So that hopefully concludes our presentation, but happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Absolutely, and in a brilliantly timely fashion as well. Would it make sense to move on to the officer report, or should we take questions first? I think officer report. Marina, I think it's over to you now for the officer report.
Sure, thank you, Chair. Hello, Chair. Could you kindly advise if my presentation is being displayed properly?
It is beautiful. Oh, well, I can see it on my computer, but we can't yet see it in the room.
Unpin.
If you unpin, Shirley, with whichever of the two mice you're having to juggle between. Maybe it's the other one. Oh dear. Oh. Oh, yes, it has happened. Keep going, Marina.
Can I carry on?
Yes, indeed. We can now see it perfectly. Please do crack on.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much for confirming. Good evening, Chair, councillors, all the members and officers. The application I'm presenting tonight is for the redevelopment of the site at Vincent Street, Canning Town. The site is located on the northern side of Vincent Street at the junction with Forth Park Road. The site forms part of strategic site S15 and is with the Royal Docks and Beckton Opportunity Area as identified by London Plan. The site is a vacant brownfield site, currently fenced up. The site does not relate to any locally or statutorily listed buildings. The nearest listed building is located some 300 meters to the west of the site. Last September, Cabinet resolved to agree on the master plan design principles for the Canning Town Estate Regeneration Project. The master plan proposal will deliver 1,510 new homes and up to 3,500 square meter non-residential space. The application site is identified as the first phase of the wider master plan, provided the opportunity for early delivery of affordable homes. The proposal is for residential-led redevelopment, involving construction of 5 buildings ranging from 3 to 9 stories, plus a podium level for the provision of 147 residential units and 191 square meter non-residential floor space, and installation of planned public realm, public car parking, landscaping, and highway works. All the proposed residential units are London affordable rent. The key planning issues that are presented at the committee tonight are principle of development, design, landscape, housing, amenity, transport, waste, biodiversity, and ecology. Moving to principle of development, the surrounding of the site is predominantly residential in character. The site is also allocated in strategic site S15, which is suitable for intensified residential use. The proposal will deliver 147 new affordable homes, which will positively contribute to the borough's housing target. The proposed flexible community and commercial units will be consistent with the strategic site allocation that is designated for residential with supporting community use, and assist the reprovision of Trinity Community Centre that has been demolished with the Canning Town Master Plan proposals. As such, the proposed development is supported in principle. Moving to design, the proposed development contains 5 buildings ranging from 3 stories to 9 stories. The massing is broken up into buildings of different heights, providing variation, articulation, and interest. The building form involves 2 elements and appointing building block A to the east and courtyard block. I will not talk about these slides too much because it has been detailed by the applicant architect. So moving to the next one. So the design of the layout has also taken the advantage of the site being east-west oriented, offering good opportunities for the design of north-south oriented streets that benefit from natural light throughout the day. Public realm is activated on all sides by communal and residential entrances. The west of the site is bordered by a new tree-lined avenue connecting north to south. The new public square is created at the junction of Vincent Street, centered around the existing trees and activated by residential communal entrance and community use at the base of Block A. Officers are supportive of the layout, which offers variety and creates active street frontage. Brick is proposed as a predominant facing materials for the development. So this slide shows the view from Vincent Street. This slide shows the view from the development from the west. This slide shows the view of the development from north. This slide shows the view of the development from the east. This slide shows the indicative Canning Town master plan proposal. Heights are varied across the emerging outline planning master plan, distributed across the neighborhood. The scale of the development is broadly aligned with the indicative building heights set out in the site allocation and works well with the existing context to the east and proposed future context to the west. The proposed public realm improvements, coupled with the delivery of a 100% affordable housing scheme, have demonstrated added value that provides a robust justification for tall building elements at this location. The LBN Strategic Design Manager is supportive of the proposal. The architecture is considered to have evolved positively through conversations with the new design review panels. Conditions are attached to planning consent to secure the design quality of the scheme. The proposal is therefore supported in design terms. Moving to landscape, the existing mature trees in the southeast corner of the site will be retained and used as a focal point of the landscape design. The proposals will also create a new public square at the junction of Vincent Street, which is supported. An enclosed landscaped communal courtyards is proposed at the podium level. Lower blocks roofs will accommodate intensive biodiverse green roofs. 32 new trees will be planted. Officers are satisfied with the design approach, and the landscaping details are the subject of conditions. Moving to housing, the proposal will deliver 38 of 3-bedroom units, which is marginally below the local plan targets. However, the scheme will include 4% of 4-bedroom units and 3.4% of 5-bedroom units. Officers consider the proposed 4 bedrooms and 5-bedroom units are suitable to house families, and therefore conclude that the proposed development would make a meaningful contribution to family housing with the borough. 68 of homes are dual or triple aspects. The majority of single aspect residential units are 1-bedroom homes with a very limited number of 2 bedrooms. All family units are at least dual aspect. All units adequately meet the minimal internal floor spaces as set out in the London plan and benefit from adequate private outdoor amenity space and good levels of light. The quality of accommodation is considered high. The application is supported with a daylight and sunlight and overshadowing report. Officers consider that target levels of retained daylight and sunlight are acceptable with the urban location. Moving to transport, the proposals will provide 18 accessible car parking spaces for the residential element and 1 accessible space for the non-residential use. The parking spaces for residential will be accessed from Vincent Street. The accessible bay for the non-residential use is proposed on street adjacent to Block A. Returning residents who currently hold a parking permit will be allowed to apply for 1 parking permit upon their return. The permit will be allocated to the returning residents, not to the residential property. As the permits are given to returning residents, the master plan will over time become fully car-free free development apart from blue badge parking. A strategy providing the details of the allocation of parking spaces for returning residents is secured by under condition 30. The proposed development will also provide 282 long-stay cycle parking spaces and 16 short-stay cycle parking spaces for residents and visitors. This provision exceeds the London Plan requirements, which is supported by officers. In summarizing the matters considered, officers conclude that through the imposition of appropriate planning conditions and obligations, the proposals are considered to be acceptable in transport terms. The refuse stores will be located with the blocks, and the refuse collection will be primarily served through the incorporation of Newham's underground refuse system. This involves the storage of the majority of household and commercial waste in underground storage, incorporated into the public realm, and collected through a specialized vehicle. The photos on this slide shows the existing URS operated in Newham. This slide shows the locations of the proposed URS collecting points with the development and a breakdown of the number of properties that each URS will service. The LBN's highways teams and waste management teams have been consulted on the proposal and are satisfied with the arrangement subject to conditions. The site is vacant. However, high-value habitats have been identified on site. In order to deliver the proposed development, most habitats on site will be lost, resulting in a biodiversity net loss. The loss is regrettable. However, the scheme will deliver 100% of affordable scheme of 177 homes. The loss is also to be mitigated through landscaping planting, biodiversity green roofs, tree planting, and offsetting payment. On balance, officers consider the proposal are acceptable in a biodiversity and ecology terms. This slide summarizes the head of terms that applicant has agreed to enter with the council, including affordable homes, employment and skills contribution, travel plan, reduced car parking, etc. A total of 502 neighboring properties were consulted on the proposal. No neighboring comments received. The District Development Committee is asked to resolve to agree the reasons for approval as set out in the committee report and delegate authority to the Director of Planning and Development to grant planning permission subject to the completion of unilateral undertaking under Section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act based on the head of the terms and conditions listed in Appendix 1 and 2 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina, for that excellent presentation. Really, really helpful. Thank you for ceasing the share of your screen. We'll now move on to questions from members. Members, if you could try and identify whether your questions are for the applicants or the officers, or indeed for Robert, who chairs the design review panel. And I will also add that, Robert, if there is a question that is asked you'd like to come in on, please do raise your hand digitally and we'll bring you in. I see Councillor Lee Parkway, and then I'll come to Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Chair. I had a couple of questions. I guess my first question I'll pose to the applicants along with Robert from the Design and Review panel. I noted the brick being used to build the blocks, and I just wondered what and how it would wear in years to come. I just wondered if was there any concerns in regards to the wearing of those bricks. That was my first question. Second question I had was, I guess, to the applicants. I'm actually quite, I think this is the first applications I've ever seen in 4 or 5 years that I've been doing strategic development where I've seen 5-bed properties. So I just wanted to commend the applicants for that. But I do note that there is quite a large amount of 1-beds. And I just wanted to understand, is that necessary? That amount, is there some type of needs assessment that's indicated that that amount of 1-beds is required, considering the first line of your introductory remarks talked to the accommodation was specifically around decant of the surrounding area in that wider master plan. So I wanted to understand, is it really necessary? And if it's not necessary, why have we not chosen a different product, maybe a 2-bed, or extending the amount of 3 beds? And I will leave it at that at the moment. I do have more questions, but I'll leave it there. I'll let Councillor Morris, but obviously I'll let.
All right, Councillor. Should we bring in applicants first, and I'll come to you, Robert, on the bricks specifically?
Yeah, I mean, brick is probably one of the most robust construction materials that is being used at the moment. And I think, we see examples all around across Newham, both from recent developments from the last decade or so, but obviously also much smaller scale developments from the last century, which I think have stood the test of time. So I think brick is widely accepted as probably one of the more resilient and common materials used in housing. Address your.
I guess I'm not querying the type of material, so I'm not querying whether or not brick is the most appropriate. I would agree. Majority of our buildings are built with brick. However, what I am querying is how that brick will wear in regards to colour. So from what you've showed us on screen and what, admittedly, they're not that great in the pack. It looks like a lightly coloured brick. And I don't know, I've seen over years blocks that the intention is for them to look very nice, but as they wear, they look not very nice.
Yeah, I guess it would be helpful to understand how these bricks, if they deal with air pollution any differently than the bricks that were used in the Victorian period of the past century. Do they weather air pollution better than older bricks? Is there a difference in that aspect?
There's a famous architect who said a brick is a brick. So it's very, I mean, it does what it does. I mean, I think that the difference from the 19th century and the air pollution that was suffered there, we suffer much less from that kind of dirty particulate pollution than we did in the 19th century. I mean, do you want to talk to the 5 brick types that we've discussed?
Yeah, we've got 3 predominant brick types and then some feature bricks throughout the development. But I think maybe your question might relate to some more recent and even some of the existing buildings on the site and some of the brick details. That's where the devil is in the details.
Yeah.
So a lot of the buildings that you might be thinking of have exposed brick on the tops of parapets and things like that. They're very, very susceptible to freeze thaw and also running damp and just accumulates over time. So as part of moving forward with this design, we've already prepared some details that are going out to tender for builders and contractors. And the part that we're sure throughout this building and all of our buildings to ensure that copings are included, whether they're aluminium or otherwise. That prevents the ingress of water up top. There are some lovely buildings that you're probably thinking of throughout London where they look great for the photographs on day one. And then 5 years later, you come back and you see staining after.
Yeah.
We're very careful to avoid those traps because it's not just about the photographs and the shiny pictures. It's about 6 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years down the line.
Thank you.
Before we cover the number of bedrooms, we'll come back to that. Robert, did you have anything to say on the brick factor?
Well, I just echo, I think, what the applicant has said. It's not likely that the brick is going to deteriorate in any way. I think what's more likely is that there might be some staining down bits of the bricks which aren't properly detailed. But because the applicants, the architects are well established, very skilled, and so on, I'm inclined to think that as they develop the detailing of the project, I think it's not something I'm concerned about. I think they'll manage it very well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. And on the quantity of one-bedroom homes?
Yeah, so what we did was originally we looked at a housing needs survey. We asked our residents what they would like to see coming forward.
Could you speak up, please?
A lot of residents said that following this assessment, it was kind of a downsizing element to it as well. So that's why there's a number of but working with our residents, thank you very much for your comment. Are trying to push those larger family units because we do know there is identified need for those large properties.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Excellent. Councillor Morris.
I think I probably have about 4 questions.
Should we do 2 and then we'll back round?
Sure. So on page 173, we mentioned a community heating system. Would you mind providing some detail about who will be operating that system? What will be the energy provider? How will it be distributed to the residents? Because there have been issues in Sheffield Olympic where the energy provider hasn't been accountable for the cost of energy, which has been falling into individual payers, but also council estates in South London. There have been times in which an individual resident hasn't turned on their heating, but has still got a higher bill because they can't turn up the communal heating within the hallways. And actually, in one of the places, cannot turn off the heating in their own bedrooms. So can you just give me a little bit more detail about how the community heating system works?
So, are we taking?
Please go ahead. Yeah.
So there isn't actually a community heating system in the earlier draft of the document. There was a mistake. We've corrected.
So in your updates, you have.
So there's no community heating. Actually, there isn't one in the area. And as you say, they're not preferred generally at the moment. So it's individual air source. It's air source heat pumps will be providing heating and cooling, and there'll be individual control units in each dwelling.
So paragraph 18 of the update report, Councillor Morris crossed out highlighted as the individual combi gas boilers, and it says.
Apologies.
Sorry, Shirley. There we go. Apologies, Councillor Morris. So that question?
It does.
Excellent.
So, and the other thing just to add to that is because it's designed in passive house principles, the energy use should be very low across the board anyway.
So,
is it on the same point?
It's actually on his other point about passive house standard.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So one of the things about passive house standard is it's meant to basically make a residential unit airtight. But actually, there have been instances of mold within social housing, in many cases new builds, because the fact that it's airtight makes the building not breathable and just mold builds up. So I just wanted to know what preventative measures have you put in place to prevent that?
Yeah, so as well as the air tightness, there is the ventilation has been provided sufficient so that there are enough air changes, and that what we shouldn't be getting is condensation building up and therefore damp occurring. So as well as and as well as looking at the U values and the energy performance of the facade and the building, the ventilation requirements have been studied as well in order to make sure that there's enough ventilation to avoid that.
You'd actually see more air movement because it's airtight. There's a mechanical ventilation heat recovery system which is bringing fresh air in and moving air around to any potential for mold growth.
But it's an HVAC system for individual
MVHR.
flats.
A mechanical ventilation system.
Brilliant. And if I may take the liberty, since we're on the topic, Councillor Morris, I'm often concerned about solar gain in homes where there is only single aspect ventilation. I note that there isn't many with single aspect, but there are some 2-bedroom homes that have just a single aspect. I'm imagining that the passive house standards mitigate some of the effects.
That there's a new what's called Part O of the building regulations, which is intended specifically to address this point of overheating in residential properties where the solar gain is not taken seriously. So we've got fairly substantial provision on the southern, the western and the eastern facades with active and dynamic shading elements to try and limit passive solar gain into the properties. So the north facing apartments obviously don't need to worry about it as much, but the other 3 elevations have all been treated with varying degrees of solar control, which is actually a requirement of the new Part O of the building regulations to address your very point.
Excellent. So we wouldn't be expecting any of the apartments to be reaching temperatures of 40 or 45 degrees Celsius in heat during heat waves.
Right.
Excellent. Councillor Morris, any more?
Sorry, I can wait until Councillor Mintos asks a question.
That's a fair point. That was 2 questions. Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted clarity in terms of the returning resident car parking, because it have some figures in terms of what your expectations are.
Audio on so that the Zoom can hear us. No, right. So we're just waiting for the Zoom to come back online.
Did everyone on Zoom hear us again? Excellent. Apologies for that. We lost connection, but we are back. Councillor Khan was asking about the number of returning residents that would require and be entitled to a resident parking permit. And
pick that up again,
please.
Yeah. So just to clarify, so all returning residents who are decanted from the estate will retain their right to a single permit. Okay. Any new residents who are new to the development, it would be car free for them. Okay. With the aim being that obviously over time, if people choose not to renew their permits, it becomes car free. But I think the key point is all returning residents would have their existing right to park retained. There's actually a planning condition 30 in your pack, which deals specifically with the kind of allocation of parking spaces for returning residents.
So nobody would have their existing right removed, but the ambition is, of course, the development would be car free in a given space of time. Yeah. Councillor Ghani.
Yeah, the returning residents, it's a council owned brownfield site. Those returning residents, these were made vacant at least 10, 15 years ago. And they must have been, rehoused elsewhere.
Okay.
Some people may have still retained their, right to return, but their own tenancy, their own tenancy may have changed. Some of them may have become, homeowner, etc. So we don't know how many of them have those residents have returning rights, and whether or not they have expressed specifically, they know, and were they consulted at home. And about the housing mix itself, we say, there is overwhelming need of 1-bedroom units, which is not the case. Newham's, scenario, it is not, the majority of the units should be more than 2 bedrooms. So I mean, when you present, when the, proposal is about 43 units, 1 bedroom units, whereas 37 is 2 beds, it should be other way around.
I'm not sure, Councillor Ghani, that the first part of your question was entirely material to the application before us. However, the second part of your question, I think the answer to Councillor Lee Parkway's question about the number of 1-bedroom homes relates to anticipated demand from residents in other households that are seeking to downsize and therefore free up other family-sized housing. Just to confirm with the applicants, is that an accurate summary?
That's correct.
Does that satisfy the question about the 1-bedroom homes, Councillor?
When I said, where residents are consulted, we didn't have any response from the residents. When we send all the questions, our questions, there was no response from the residents.
So can I just come in, maybe just some help?
Sure, Councillor Lee Parkway.
I guess to the applicants, I guess the question here is the properties in which we're looking at the application for today is obviously clearly on a brownfield site. And so Councillor Ghani's remarks in regards to those residents may have been decanted many years ago. But I guess the question is that to those decanted residents, is that for the rest of the actual master plan? Is that to do with the rest of the area in which the master plan covers going forward? So is it of those residents that may be decanted into these properties as new properties, as their properties will be demolished?
It might be helpful to hear a little bit about the overall engagement on the Canning Town master plan. Imagine some of you were involved in. If you could speak to that.
Maybe
We can. It's perhaps just worth
the officers
answering that point, because I think that's pretty fundamental. So
it's the Canning Town estate regeneration has been going since 2002. There has been a residence charter, and the council is now working to produce a housing offer. With the housing offer, we will produce a landlord offer, which residents will vote on whether they want to have regeneration or not. So what we're looking to do is at this moment in time is work with our residents to get to a place where we get a positive outcome, because following the positive outcome, we can then start looking into the details of the local lettings policy, because we still have to refer to the residence charter, which does look at Canning Town and Custom House as a wider estate regeneration. So those residents whose properties were demolished and the site where we're currently looking at would still be entitled to a right to return on this Vincent Street application.
Does that satisfy your queries?
I guess my question, trying to be useful to Councillor Ghani's question, which is, and I think I heard you answer it to a certain extent, which is it encompasses the whole master plan.
Correct, yeah.
So those people that may be on the road next to this site could also have a right to be decanted into the new properties in which you're building, which is obviously at affordable housing rent.
So as an example, you may have had residents who East Point development or the Rathbone Market or Hallsville Quarter, who would then, once we go through our records to understand who was within the area, we would then go back to them and ask them, you have a right to return. Do you wish to return to the Vincent Street development? And then we can take it. We can then start our process from there in terms of the lettings policy.
Okay.
So the former residents with a right to return is not entirely contained within just the brownfield site, but there is in fact a radius relating to the demolition that preceded the Canning Town master plan consultation.
Correct.
Are you satisfied, Councillor Ghani?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Morris.
So I have 2 questions. One of them is to Marina Lai. On page 173, paragraph 29, it says 73.8% compared to Part L 2021. I mean, I have to know what Part L is to know comparison. Can you?
Marina, could you enlighten us specifically on what Part L 2021 refers to?
Chair, could you please just can I clarify which page councillor is referring to?
Chair, Just a second, please, for those in the room. We've lost the connection to the screen once again, everyone online. We're terribly sorry. We're just reconnecting it and we've paused the meeting until we've done that.
No. Just a suggestion.
Could everyone online hear us again? Excellent. We shall resume the meeting once more. We were speaking specifically about Part L in energy policy. Marina, you were going to answer, but the applicant has volunteered to. Should we go applicant and then Marina?
So Part L is part of the building regulations for energy use. So in London specifically, you're expected to exceed building regulations by 35%. And in fact, in this, our design for this exceeds it by.
Just that's set in the London plan.
Yeah.
5% exceedance on, in effect, national standards. We're exceeding that by quite a lot, by 73% rather than 35%.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris. Marina, did you want to add anything?
No, there's no anything. Yeah, no add from me.
Are you satisfied, Councillor Morris? Excellent. Councillor Lee Parkway.
Thank you. I have a question in regards to landscaping. So just going back to the presentation that you showed us, I noted, I can't find the page in my document, so give me 1 second. I noted there was a long corridor of the amount of trees. I use the word corridor, I can't think of what the other words are.
Intimate streets.
That's the one, whatever you say. And I just wondered, my question goes to the landscaping and as it interacts with safety and criminality, basically. So I wanted to understand where the actual trees have been placed. Have they been placed in a way to ensure that there is, if there is, and I'm hoping there will be some type of surveillance, whether that be CCTV or natural surveillance, that there is the ability for surveillance to happen in the very best way. I think sometimes when we look at a lot of applications, it's really nice to have trees, but we think about them as they're planted in the ground and not after 20 years when they're really high in the sky. In actual fact, they then cover CCTV cameras and so on and so forth. So I want to understand how the trees interact with the safety of the new development in which you're proposing.
So we have had consultation with the Secure by Design officer who's reviewed the scheme, and I think there's even a condition
number 9
requiring further consultation with them on this very subject. And to your point about active surveillance versus passive surveillance, that the preference is obviously for there to be more active street frontages where there is kind of natural supervision occurring of the public realm, and we've very much provided that with doors at ground level as much as and living spaces as well. But I mean, I think it's a valid point. There's both a condition attached to the landscaping and a condition attached to the Secure by Design, and we would respond to those points as part of that process.
Okay, thank you. Chair, I have one other question, if that's okay.
That is fine. Just because it's related, I wanted to ask, I imagine a development of this size would be quite substantially covered by CCTV, wouldn't it?
Not sure we've even had that discussion, if I'm completely honest with you. I think that's something that we need to develop with the council about what the strategy is.
Okay, but it's one that gets to be outlined, but is on your radar.
Yeah, I think condition 9 kind of deals with that because we need to submit more security and details for approval.
Excellent. Councillor Lee Parkway, do carry on.
So just off the... Oh. That was me. Sorry, I'm muting myself. So just off the back of what you just said, I guess I want to just make it clear that please ensure that those conversations haven't happened just in regards to that specific area and what we know already around crime and community safety. It's really important. But I do have another question in regards to which some of you who know me will know that I will ask these questions. I haven't really seen, as much as this is a really good application, I haven't really seen how this site would interact with young people, children, and what the benefits of having this development would be for them going forward. I can't, and admittedly, the drawings are not the greatest on the printed pack that we have, but I'd like to understand how the amenities for young people within this space, how they would interact with the residents that will be occupying the space. I do appreciate there is courtyard, but I haven't seen anything specific to play space of any type of.
There are some stats within, I'm just trying to, which describe the play space provision that we are providing and how it's targeted at each of the age groups. I mean, the elevated podium is I suppose, a private amenity space for residents, and to a certain extent, that's going to serve children that are living in the development. We've dealt with it within the red line of the application, but I suppose it will be inevitable if long term, the master plan is intended to substantially improve the provision of play facilities across the strategic site. But we have dealt with it on the site itself, and there are play provisions detailed within the document.
Could you then just indicate to me where I should be looking?
Councillor Chair, can I add something, please, to answer this question? That committee report, page 158 and 159, indicates the open space floor area for different children's group.
So we've got a proposed play space at Vincent Street depicted on page 159.
158 and 159. So
the diagram on 159,
so the quantum of the proposed play space at Vincent Street is actually beyond the GLA, is above the GLA's requirement. Of course, we have also imposed a condition to secure the details of this play element. So the councillors' points are taken. So when they submit application to discharge these conditions, we will ensure that play floor space and the play equipment will meet the young people's requirement.
You have a total amount of play space proposed at 2.3 kilometres squared, which exceeds GLA standards, and there's a calculation to depict that. Might it be helpful, Councillor Lee Parkway, if we heard from Robert on any of the conversations that were had?
Yes, please.
Design review panel on the play space?
Sorry, Chair, may I just add one point?
Sure. Sorry, Robert, we're going to hear from Santop first.
And just to your point, I think in the wider master plan, and when that comes forward, there'll be also significant open space and play space as well. So I just wanted to make that point, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Santop. Robert, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I don't think it's something I'm really qualified to talk about because it's not something that we spent a lot of time talking about. But obviously, this is part of a larger master plan, and I know that there is provision for a lot of open space and no doubt play space in it.
Thank you. Okay, can I just one other thing then, Chair, if you don't mind, just one little thing for those in the room that know me. So I would just ask that when those conversations are had, as Marina said, that we may consider those of special education needs and disabilities and what that equipment may be for them, just ensuring that those young people have as much of a say in that space as possible.
Can I just respond? So we do actually have an inclusive design specialist as part of the design team who's been working on this and will be working on the master plan as well.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. Councillor Khan.
Question, I just want to kind of compliment green roof.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Khan. Councillor Morris.
I think this is to the office. And then
Apologies everyone online. We have lost the screening out of the room. We were just talking about the underground refuse. I know that the refuse and recycling team has recently procured additional vehicles with the required tech to pick up the underground bins. Councillor Morris wanted to ask about assurances that we have sufficient vehicles and that they're going to be arriving on time to deal with this, etc. Who would like to take that from the officer side?
Councillor
Marina? Oh,
yes,
we can't hear
I'm
Marina,
happy to
of
take
course.
this up. So there has been intensive engagement with council's waste management team, and then David Webb has confirmed. Sorry, can I continue? Sorry.
Yep.
Oh, okay. And the waste management team and the highways team both have confirmed that arrangement in terms of vehicle collection and the turning points are satisfied.
That's fine. Marina, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I just am not sure what I said. It seems that there's
course.
an echo in my responses.
Absolutely. Through no fault of your own whatsoever, we did not get the entirety of your answer. Would you kindly repeat it?
Sure. There has been intensive engagement with borough's highways team and the waste collection team. And both officers from the teams have confirmed the arrangement, the waste arrangement, including the turning point, are satisfied. They are happy for the proposal.
Does that satisfy your query, Councillor Morris? I do know for a fact that we have procured some more of those vehicles very recently, so they're aware of the demand coming down the track. But very good to hear about that from Marina. Santok.
And just on that point, I understand there to be two vehicles. We have worked closely with our waste team because obviously you've got Hallsville Quarter, which is adjacent to the site. So that's why we look to exploring the underground refuse system.
Brilliant. Right. I think I heard that there was some calls perhaps had the vehicles named. Keep your ears peeled. Are there any further questions from members of the committee? No. I had a question, if you don't mind, myself that is, on the number of cycle parking spaces noted through a correction in the committee update. It's been amended to 5 short stay parking spaces for bicycles and 279 long stays. Of course, the 279 long stays will be used by residents, and it's fantastic to see so many there because of course, active travel is a priority for transport investment in the borough and future developments and ways of living. But 5 short stay cycle parking spaces strikes me as rather limited if we're expecting visitors to residents in these blocks to be using the cycle superhighways adjacent to the site that follows sort of Barking Road around Canning Town. Is there any provision on the site for the future to have these increased should demand warrant it?
There's certainly capacity, and I think the strategy across the master plan will be to embrace, kind of cycle transport much more holistically across the whole master plan. So I would suggest that whilst, there's only 5 short stay for this development, we would hope that there'll be a substantial increase in provision as part of a wider master plan. But there is capacity if the demand is shown to be there. There is capacity to increase the short stay provision in the future. There's no spatial constraints in that regard.
I guess specifically, I'm thinking about people who are visiting this particular development. If one is a friend or relative of people living in this development and they wish to visit by bicycle, we should be ensuring that it's built with that in mind.
Chris makes a good point that we're actually building 16 short stay. In theory, 11 of them are for the non-residential, which you might tie to daytime usage, and the 5 are attached to the residential. So in the evenings, you could actually see there being 16 short stay cycle spaces available.
And I think we've just had to differentiate in that because that's what the London plan is telling us to do. Whereas I think the reality is that there's 16. I don't think anyone's going to be policing exactly who.
No, that's quite right. Councillor Morris, you want us to come in?
Yes, Chair. It said in the report that the development will house an estimated 573 people. That's on page 171. And according to the design of the channel, there will be about 3,000 people in the area. Now, obviously, there is a short. I have been in the area. There is a shortage of short stay cycle vehicles. Also, it's an if these new developments will have short stay cycle available. So I think it would be a good idea to at least anticipate the demand for the area and increasing the number of short stay cycle.
I think on top of Councillor Morris's comment, it's also, we often remind applicants that when it comes to transport infrastructure, frankly, if one builds it, people come. And that if we only anticipate a limited amount of demand, that's a level of demand that will come. But if there are indeed, as Councillor Morris describes, enough short stay cycle parking spaces for, say, tens of more residents, I imagine they would be well utilised.
Okay, so we're just double checking.
Of course.
So the provision to increase that. So under condition 27, you've got requirement for a travel plan. It's condition 27 on page
119.
Okay, and so part of that is around encouraging sustainable travel and transport, but also I think there's the mechanism that we can build in there regarding ongoing review. And so in the event that in the future there is actual demand, as you say, it sounds due that there is the space to accommodate potentially physically in the public realm. And so if this is something that's important to members, there's perhaps nothing that stops us from kind of reviewing future parking or cycle parking need and demand.
That's really promising. I guess on the point about should demand appear in the future, I guess I would perhaps hammer home the point that the demand will be there if the provision is there. That's often the transport patterns that people demonstrate, whether it's
one thing just around the wider master plan, which is still to be taken forward. We're doing transport scoping and assessments with as part of that anyway, but there's also an intention to look at connectivity across the A13 and make sure that cycle routes and are considered in how the master plan is put together. And that will all be considered with that. So there certainly is the intention to, well, I think, stimulate the demand as well as follow it.
It certainly satisfies my question. Does it yours, Councillor Morris? Do you have a follow-up?
No, I have a different question.
Okay.
One last question about affordability. So 100% London affordable rent. However, the median monthly rent for a 3-bed home is about £3,900, and 80%, which is London or market rate, which is London affordable, will be about £3,000. I don't know a lot of my constituents or quite a few people in there that can afford that. So, what's the particular reason why you chose to provide social instead of London affordable? London affordable rather than social.
Partly, first of all, it's to make sure we secure the GLA grant funding. We need 14, in order for this patient, we need £14.7 million grant funding from the GLA in order to build it. So that's why we've approached it at London affordable rent.
Follow-up question.
Go ahead, Councillor Morris.
Conditions where you cannot offer a lower rent than London affordable.
GLA does have that condition because there has to be an revenue and generated by the fund. That's
so our returning residents will be on genuine affordable rents.
Mark Green's returned. That's a legacy.
Mark, is your hand raised because we lost connection momentarily?
No, just to answer the question as well. So absolutely, as Santok has just clarified, the referencing is because these will be eligible for the GLA grant, and the GLA under this grant program refer to these homes in this program as London affordable rent. That's why they're referred to as London affordable rent. And where we are using these homes for decant, then existing residents will be transferring back within the confines of the structure of their existing rent arrangements. So they are generally affordable homes.
Yeah. So returning families will have social rent because that's what they're entitled to, but for the GLA grant reasons, it's not affordable rent.
So to clarify, only new tenants will be.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, as a follow-up to that, for one of the 5-bedroom homes, what's the anticipated, obviously given inflationary factors when the development is built, for current level, what's the anticipated rent for that home?
It's exactly £207.23 per week.
Okay.
That's the current 2022-2023 rate.
Not extortionate. Not at all extortionate. Councillor Ghani.
Page 141-64. This Trinity Community Center will be demolished, and instead, this place it will be in Block A, the provision for community facility will be will be in place. So can someone explain what, so, what is the size and
We, at the base of the pavilion building, which is block A, we have 191 square meters of space, which is designated for community use. And the suggestion is that if, as part of the master plan, the Trinity Centre is demolished, that community space could transfer into the base of this building. So it's 191 square meters of space.
I'll refer you to page 203, councillor, where the proposed floor plan, you can see the blue shaded area that shows the location of the.
What page is that?
203.
203.
And it overlooks the public square that we've created on the southeast corner. We think it'll be a kind of a very pleasant environment for a community space.
It would be, I imagine, a significant upgrade from the existing Trinity Community Centre based on the plans that we've read in the report. Does that satisfy your query, councillor?
Yeah, that's
Fantastic. I am minded to bring the item to a close, given that we've certainly asked a very excellent breadth of questions at the committee, to which we appreciate the forthcoming on. To confirm, there are no further questions from committee members. Fantastic. Marina, could we please bring up the recommendations to the screen for the benefit of members in the room?
Sure.
Thank you very much. So the Strategic Development Committee is asked to resolve to agree the reasons for approval as set out in the report, and of course to delegate the relevant authority to Director of Planning to grant permission for this to move forward. By raise of hands, can I understand who is in agreement? Excellent. And of course, that would be unanimous and therefore no abstentions and no objections. Thank you very much. That concludes item 6 on the agenda. Very, very grateful to Santop, Jude, Chris, Alex, Zoe and Tom for coming to talk to us in person and present and answer questions. You may quietly shuffle out. You don't have to stay for the next item, so you're very welcome to.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Stay, but you aren't obliged.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Might I suggest a 3-minute comfort break? Okay, we shall have a 3-minute comfort break and resume at 20 minutes past 7.
Thank you, Chair.
Can you hear us? Oh, sorry, that's me.
This evening's meeting and moving on to item 7, which is Elmhurst Primary School on Upton Park Roads. Just get dust on my jacket now, thanks, John. Sorry. We've got Mark here, haven't we, on behalf of Elmhurst Primary School, is that correct? No?
No, Chair, I misled you. He was part of the other development.
Ah.
So I'm not sure if we've got the applicant present.
Do we have anybody
Unfortunately, the planning agent has indicated that nobody from the school is going to be attending this evening.
Really?
Unfortunately, so.
Have they provided a reason?
So the only reason that the agent has provided is that it's half term.
Okay.
So I can only apologise for that.
I imagine the applicant would have had ample notice as to the schedule of the meeting. Was it raised?
So the notification letters would have gone out at least a week ago.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Morris.
May I request advice on can we defer an application, this application to a later date? Because there has been an ongoing issue where schools have submitted planning applications, but there haven't been a representative of the school to attend to answer a question. I think it is perhaps time to set an example that if there are no applicants provide answers to our questions, so we can judge the application, that we will not review the application to approve it.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Were we to take such a decision, it wouldn't be, I must hasten to add, to set any example, it would be solely due to the application before us and the fact that we had questions that we didn't feel could be answered if the applicant wasn't present. May I take advice from officers present and from the clerk as to any anticipated consequences of asking for a deferral for when the applicant can be here?
Chair, Amanda's raised her hand.
Amanda, please.
I think your reasoning is very sound for a deferral if you don't feel that you're able to have your questions met in relation to this particular proposal. So it's up to you.
I appreciate that, Amanda. I must say, I understand that schools operate to an academic calendar, but when they have to liaise with other aspects of municipal or even civil life, I'm sure they appreciate that their calendar is not everyone's calendar. It may be half term, but it's not a bank holiday. It's not unreasonable to expect somebody from the school or the consultant even to have appeared to answer questions that I know the committee do indeed have. I will take Councillor Morris's recommendation for a deferral. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Khan. So we will now take a vote on whether to defer item 7, that is Elmhurst Primary School, due for the reasons we have agreed with Amanda that are justified in legal terms, because there isn't anybody from the applicant's team to answer questions here tonight. Can I take a vote for those who are in agreement to this deferral? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, making it unanimous decision, nobody against and nobody abstaining. Clerk, has that vote been recorded?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. So the Strategic Development Committee has resolved to defer item 7, Elmhurst Primary School, until an agreement made with the applicant and of course either the next meeting or the next appropriate availability in the calendar. Is there anything that any of the officers would like to add or to clarify for the purpose of the minutes? No. Excellent. That does indeed bring us swiftly on to item 8, which is the date of the next meeting. We've got the 21st of March, 2023, and we don't have any other business on the agenda. So I am pleased to bring this meeting to a close. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody, and everyone online. Thank you for joining this evening, and we shall now